first thing that I think is true, whether you're starting a business or whether you're an artist, is that there's not one thing. You know, I really think it's a cumulative effect rather than a singular thing you do. You know, and here I am, 8.5 years after I started my company, and I'm talking on a panel. And you know, it's part of what I do to also get the word out there about my business. And you know, last month I was in Berlin, I was in Seville, I was in London. I've talked on panels. You know, it's just part of what I do. I write a blog. I was on the phone with a reporter right before I came here, a guy from France. So, like running a business, it's about, for me, if there's one thing, it's persistence. You know. The other thing that I will say is that it's, when I say accumulation, there's a lot of different channels, whereas in the past there only used to be maybe 3 or 4. So it used to be radio, TV, retail, just to a large degree. Now, even on Sonic Biz, we have wineries, for example. We'll put out compilation CDs every time you buy 6 bottles of wine. We have podcasters. We have companies like Guess Jeans who are about to launch a new campaign where a band will get to have a pair of jeans named after them. You know, we have coffee houses, colleges. So for me, it's about trying different things, exploring different channels, and realizing that I don't think it's the one thing you're going to do that is going to get you out there. Which, if you think about it, 20 years ago, there was one thing: get on a major label. That was it. You know, and I think everybody's energy and focus was around that singular event. How do I put myself into this pipeline called a major label deal, and then hopefully reach a very, very wide audience? So what I'm observing today, and I'm amazed at the creativity. You know, like there's a lot of people that even at Sonic, because we have a lot of folks that they're in their early 20s and they consume music in a very different way than I do. You know, whether it's Last FM, whether it's through reading Brooklyn Vegan. You know, there are so many ways today to find about an artist and hear an artist, the Echo Nest, that I think as an artist you have to be A, aware of them, B, realize that you're no longer just in the music business, but you're also in the internet business. You know, so do you know enough about search engine optimization? Do you know about search engine marketing? Do you blog? Do you do anything about getting yourself out in podcasts that people listen to? You know, so certainly there's a lot of clutter, but I see the clutter as opportunity. And again, just look at it as an accumulation of action rather than the one thing you do.
I mean, is it also, maybe I'm being naive, but you know, what about the analog side? What about performing? I mean, I've always heard that you've got to be out there performing as often as you can, because that sort of thing that ties it all together, and there's nothing like a live performance.
There's, you know, it's one of those things that certainly creates a relationship between artist and audience, and it's immediate, and hopefully both artist and audience, when that happens, you know, everybody has a good time. So yes, absolutely. You know, and there's a little point here too, clarity, that when it used to be that major label deal, that 8% on average, 8% of the signed acts, you may know this, but 8% were profitable. And it was the 8% of the acts signed to major labels that carried a $40 billion industry.
It's amazing.
The incredible but true. And so all of the jazz records that were made, all of them, except the occasional thing that fit into a jazz category that many jazz musicians are insulted by, like a Kenny G thing, almost all jazz, almost all classical recordings relied upon the fuel, the money, in the bank accounts that was created by the stuff of the much more popular, more widely consumed genres of music. So it was most often, in fact, we used to joke, again, being around for a couple of 3 decades, that one of the fastest track to break up your band was get a major label deal. So, because there's great promise, and of course when 92% of the time you're not going to be profitable, you're not going to get much support for very long from your label, and then everybody fights with everybody, blames everybody, sues everybody. If you have any money to sue anybody with, then you're gone. So a lot of the same issues, even though we're in a very different time, a lot of the same issues exist, which is how do you answer that question well? And so how do you get some recognition from among what is now this incredibly vast playing field with millions and millions of players.
You know, it is a combination of, you said analog, I guess, physical interaction and digital. And I think, you know, we just went through a very long political, you know, campaign and election process. And I write a blog at songnews.com/panosbrew, and I wrote about Barack Obama really being the first president to be elected largely based on his understanding of modern media. Whether, if you take politics, which politics is really very similar to a band. You know, you've got to go out there and get an audience, or an entrepreneur. You've got to get out there and get customers. FDR understood that radio is a great new technology to reach an audience. JFK understood that TV is a great new medium to reach an audience. I think Barack Obama understood that the internet is a great new medium to raise money and reach an audience. And that, however, with every new piece of technology that has come around, has not stopped the need to go out there and press the flesh, if you will.
Yeah.
You know, you've got to go out there and meet people, and I think this is where the live performing aspect comes into it. We're human beings, we crave interaction. That's why we're here talking to you in person, and we're not up there on the screen beaming in from our respective offices, even though it may be a lot easier for some of us. So I do believe that it's that understanding that you have to have as an artist, that all these new channels are new ways of reaching an audience, but they don't in and of themselves negate the old ways that you used to do it. And I think that's the fun of it, whether you're an entrepreneur or an artist, that you can capitalize on all the old stuff, you know, by presenting new things, or the new stuff.
You know, I was thinking about the whole conversation, and if I can go philosophical here for a minute.
Please.
I think everybody on this panel got involved in the music business because we love music. And you think about what's broken in the record business, I think, is that the focus was on that 8%, right? The focus was on making superstars.
Big time.
And not doing what you're doing. And, you know, socially, I think it's worthy, it's a worthy cause, right, to be able to make a living, to create an environment where musicians can make a decent living and not be paupers.
Well, if I may,
It's magical. Music is magic.
And not to sound like, although you know I have great respect for what you've done, I mean, and I genuinely do. And by the way, as I mean, regardless of whether as a musician you would use Sonic Biz or you don't, as a case study, which ultimately is that which we have available to us. And there's a recommendation, by the way, is do something that also has worked. Doesn't matter what the changes may be. Look at the world you're in and look at its history and see, and what's happening currently, what's successful, what were successful businesses, what were successful behaviors and practices or what were practices and behaviors that created success. And what Panos and Sonic Biz has done, I mean, it's very interesting because you talk about the internet and you talk about the Obama campaign. And I've heard people in their politics, you know, I mean, from the extreme right to big Obama supporters, all chiming in wonder and amazement, and to some degree with eyes, you know, wide open and ears listening very, very carefully to what was employed and continues to be employed on the part of that campaign and those individuals who seized the value of being able to really, again, get involved with what it's a real, you know, a pluralism. I mean, there's a real popularization again. Panos was saying, I can put together a far more cost-effective way for myself as an agent, as a booking agent, to be able to reach out to buyers by doing this electronically rather than stuffing packages of material that I have to send overseas at $50 and $60 a FedEx package. And how many I need to distribute to get the gig. It's incredibly and prohibitively expensive. And not only can I do this for me, but I can systematize and then offer these services to other agencies. And then provide a method and a means for artists to be able to electronically reach out and be reached back to without having to keep hitting up mom and dad for another, you know, $40, $50, $150 to press another CD, make another 8x10 run, and put another envelope together to send to an A&R person who's never going to open it.
Yeah.